All right, today we are unpacking a really fascinating interpretation of biblical prophecy. It's a theory that claims to connect an ancient, cryptic text to a modern symbol you probably have in your pocket right now, the $1 bill. So it all starts with its one super mysterious phrase from the book of Revelation: time, times, and half a time. For centuries, people have tried to figure out what this could possibly mean. Is it literal? Is it symbolic? Well, the theory we're looking at today claims to have cracked the code. And here is where it gets really interesting. The source we're examining proposes that the key to unlocking this whole thing isn't buried in some lost text or ancient scroll, but that it's actually hidden in plain sight, right on the Great Seal of the United States, printed on every single dollar bill. Okay, so to really get how the calculation works, we first have to go back to the source text itself. This phrase pops up in a really dramatic, symbolic vision that's described in Revelation chapter 12. So first, let's meet the key players in this vision. The scene is this epic cosmic drama. You've got a celestial woman about to give birth. She's being pursued by this terrifying fiery red dragon who wants to, well, devour her child. The child is saved, and the woman escapes to a place of refuge, a place called the wilderness. So here's the first big step in this whole theory. You have to figure out who these symbolic characters actually are. Let's break down how the source material decodes each one. First up, the woman. According to this theory, she represents Zion, basically the people of Israel. She's seen as the mother figure who brought forth not just Jesus, who is the male child, but also the entire early Christian church. And the villain of the story, the dragon, well, that's identified as the Roman Empire. The evidence for this, according to the source, is historical. It points to the 10 major persecutions of Christians that happened under Roman emperors, connecting that to the 10 horns of the dragon in the vision. And now for the identification that might be the most surprising of all. The wilderness, that safe haven where the woman is protected. This interpretation identifies it as the United States, a nation seen as a refuge for the persecuted people of God. Okay, so now that we have our cast of characters identified, this is where the math comes in. The source material takes that poetic phrase, time, times, and half a time, and turns it into a very specific number of years. Now, this part is really important because the whole theory hinges on the specific Hebrew word used for time. The source argues the word isn't iden, which just means a regular year. Instead, it's mod, which means a special appointed time or a significant season. That distinction is absolutely critical for the whole calculation. So if a time isn't just a year, what is it? The source finds its answer right here, in Exodus, where the appointed time, that special period that the Israelites spent in Egypt, is spelled out as exactly 430 years. And that becomes the key, the fundamental unit of measurement. So here's how the math breaks down. One time equals those 430 years. Times, plural, is interpreted as 3, which gives you 1,290 years. Then half a time is, half of 430, so 215 years. You add it all up, and you get a grand total of 1,935 years. But that leads to the next big question. When does this 1935-year clock start ticking? The source pinpoints the year 81 AD. That's when Emperor Domitian began the second major Roman persecution of Christians. So if you take 81 AD and you add 1935 years, you land precisely on the year 2016. But wait, there's more. The theory doesn't just rely on that one biblical calculation. It claims there's a second clue, almost like a confirmation, an independent piece of evidence encoded on the back of the US $1 bill. So keep that number in your head. 2016, because according to this theory, the pyramid on the Great Seal points to that exact same year. First, we gotta understand the symbolism. In this view, the pyramid's foundation stone, that bottom block, represents Jesus Christ. And the 12 levels of stone built on top of it, well, those are said to represent the 12 apostles, the foundation of the church. All right, now for the dollar bill math. The year written on the base of the pyramid is 1776. The source assigns a value of 20 years to each of those 12 levels. So 12 levels times 20 years apiece gives you 240 years. Add that to the foundation year of 1776, and what do you get? 2016. And there it is, again. Think about that. Two completely different methods, one from an ancient biblical text and another from an 18th century American symbol, and they both supposedly point to the exact same year. That convergence is presented as powerful evidence that this year is incredibly significant. So, what's the big deal with 2016? Well, according to this interpretation, it wasn't supposed to be the end of the world. Instead, it was the start of the final prophetic countdown. The idea here is that the year 2016 kicked off the very last week of another famous prophecy, Daniel's 70 weeks. And in that prophetic language, 1 week is actually a period of 7 years. So 2016 allegedly set a series of final events into motion. This slide lays out the full roadmap as predicted by the source. The 7-year week that started in 2016 ends in 2023. This is followed by major milestones in 2027, including the building of a spiritual living temple, and it all culminates in 2034 with the second coming of Christ and the end of the Great Tribulation. So you might be asking, where does 2034 come from? Well, there's another piece to this puzzle. The source defines a biblical generation as 120 years. It then argues that the last generation mentioned in the Gospels actually began with the start of World War I back in 1914. So you take 1914, add 120 years, and you land, once again, on 2034. And that really brings us to the core idea of this whole theory. It asks us to consider, what if history isn't just a series of random, chaotic events? What if it's actually a meticulously coded timeline with clues to a specific destiny hidden in scripture and even on our money, all just waiting to be decoded?